good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Mychal Bryan podcast. I'm your host, Mychal A. Bryan, and joining me today, all the way from Berlin, Germany, is Dr. Hermann Traitteur. Hey, Hermann, how are you?
Hi, Michael. I'm fine. Thank you so much to be here. I'm excited.
Good, you're very welcome. So, Hermann, you and I, we rehearsed for a little bit for me to get your surname correctly, and I said Traitteur. Did I do a good job?
Perfect. Very good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Hermann, I'm so excited to be here with you, and I can't wait to dive into our conversation for today. But before we do that, for those of you who this is your first time joining us here on the Mychal Bryan podcast, this is a podcast where I've been interviewing Iyengar yoga teachers from all around the world, and ultimately a podcast where we interview healers and teachers from all around the world to talk to us about different aspects of their spiritual or yoga or mindfulness-based practice. So if you want to continue to be a part of this wonderful momentum that we're building here on the Mychal Bryan podcast, please do make sure to subscribe down below and share this episode of the podcast with your other yoga, mindfulness, and spirituality loving friends. So Hermann, once again, I'm super excited to have you here with me today. I think the last time I saw you in person, we were riding on a bus together we were in Champaign-Urbana, and I think we were riding on a bus together from Champaign to Chicago. Do you remember that?
I remember this. I was on my way back to Berlin and you were on your way actually back to Chicago. I don't know what you did.
Exactly. And I have to tell you something, Hermann. On that bus ride, you gave me a set of keys to give to Lois for the bike. And I have a confession to make because I never actually gave Lois those keys.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, she's figured it out because I think she just got a new set of something or something. But all is well. But I just wanted to let you know to get it off my chest that I didn't actually give Lois the keys because I don't think I went back to Champaign-Urbana. And then there was the pandemic, and then I mean, this is the first time. I was just there a couple of weeks ago, but this is the first time I've been to Champaign-Urbana in almost 2 years. So anyway, we've sorted out the key situation and all is well. So Hermann, we're here today to talk about some of the amazing work that you've been doing in Iyengar yoga, not just in Berlin, but also internationally. I've known you for years because any of us who've been studying with Lois for a while would have come across your work or would have heard Lois talk about you, even in situations where Lois wasn't specifically talking about your book. I've traveled with Lois and she's also talked about you, and she really respects you a lot. And so it's really an honor for me to sit down here and talk with you today because I too respect the work that you've been doing in Iyengar yoga.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very, very welcome. I mean, you have such a diverse background, one of which is you have a medical background. So before we even get into the Iyengar yoga side of things, talk to me a little bit about who you are and how you came to study medicine in the first place.
Yeah, I grew up in Munich, which is in south of Germany. And after I finished school, I wanted to become a psychotherapist. And at that time, we had to do a military service before studying or social service. So I decided to work in a psychosomatic hospital. And I was also trained as a co-therapist there in behavioral therapy. And I did this for 2 years. And there they told me it's better to study medicine and not psychology. To be honest, I wasn't interested in medicine at all. I was super excited in psychology. And it was very difficult to study medicine at the time, but I was lucky and I got the opportunity to start studying medicine in Munich. And then a little nightmare began. The first 2-3 years really were a nightmare for me because I was interested in philosophy, psychology, in emotions, in arts, but not really in sciences like chemistry, anatomy, physiology. All those things were nightmare for me, and I had a really difficult time to get into it. And then slowly, I got a little bit better. And when I moved to Berlin in 1990, my whole life also changed a lot. And then I met nice people when I was studying medicine who also had different ideas. And so then it was good. But I really the first 3 years were nightmare, and in this time, especially in the first 3 years, yoga also helped me a lot to go through this, and because I could do some asanas and go back to the books and do some asanas, and really could feel that I get energy. And yeah, so I started studying medicine with the idea to become a psychotherapist. But when in the early 90s, my life changed in many things. Berlin was fantastic. I was really happy. I was practicing yoga, and my interest in psychotherapy became less, and my interest in yoga became more and more. And there I thought, okay, for yoga, it's good to first know many things about the anatomy. Therefore, I decided to specialize in orthopedic medicine. So when I finished in 1996 for 2 years, 1997, 1999, I worked in an orthopedic hospital. And then actually my classical medical career was kind of finished, because it's not so difficult, orthopedic medicine. I think I learned a lot, and I wanted to only continue with yoga.
Hermann, that is really an interesting story to hear, because as I listen to you, I think about so many people who go to university and aren't really passionate about what they're studying, and then they have to grow in that passion ultimately, and then still at the end of the day turn around and do something that really spoke to their heart deeply. So I mean, when I was in university studying journalism, I also wanted to study dance. And then I've finished a 4-year journalism program, but then I automatically entered into the dance field after that, because I had also been practicing dance and training in dance during my time in university. And that's really where I wanted to be. I wanted to have an embodied career, and dance did that for me more than journalism did, as well as yoga ultimately has also done that for me in a way that I don't think I could have ever experienced. And so I think it's really fascinating that you also knew deep down within yourself where your passion really was, or where it wasn't. And and as a result of that, you're doing what you're really passionate about today.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, the topics when I was studying medicine, anatomy and physiology, I hated. And this is what I'm now teaching as a yoga teacher, or this is what I was writing as a book. It's really funny, you know. Also, or for example, as a child, I hated to move. I hated sports. Then I found yoga, and then I found, wow, the body is not that bad. It's great to evolve your. So I came back with to my body, and when I was studying medicine, the things that I didn't like, somehow I'm grateful that I've learned them, and now I want to kind of integrate them in the yoga practice and also in my teaching.
That's also an interesting point that you bring up, because I think also a lot of people have this experience of accumulating a lot of knowledge through the years, and it seems like none of it fits, you know. So someone may have a background in writing and art and philosophy and psychology and yoga and all of these things, and then ultimately at the end of the day it all comes together, and you don't even know how it's going to come together, but you find yourself bringing out of you all of the things that you already have qualifications in. So, I mean, I'm super happy that you chose to become a doctor, because I think we're all benefiting from your work today.
Yeah, right now I'm also happy that I did it, but there were times that I wasn't so happy.
It's a good thing. And so also other confession, at the moment I'm thinking about going back to school, that I've actually applied to go back to school in January. And And I know that all my life I've wanted to study medicine in some capacity. And so I'm going back in slowly, and I'm going to do a science program that has some of the prerequisites for medicine. But I've always wanted to study medicine, but it's always seemed so daunting. The length of time required, the amount of years required, then after you've studied in school, the residency that you have to do and all of that stuff. And it's really something that a lot of people where I'm from in the Bahamas say, go and be a doctor. Being a doctor is the best thing in the world. But then at the same time, they also tell you, but it takes up so many years of your life. 10 years are going to pass and you're still going to be a student. So I've battled with that for a long time as well, because as an extension of my dance practice and my yoga practice, I've wanted to enter something that makes me feel more deeply connected to the human body, to the anatomy and the physiology. And I commend anyone who can do that. I know Gwen, Lois's student in Champaign-Urbana, and Gwen has been studying medicine for as long as I've known Gwen. And it really seems like a long and a slow uphill climb, but ultimately, I mean, you end up being able to do the work that you're now doing. And there's so much respect that we all have in the Iyengar yoga community for those of us who are actually qualified medical practitioners.
But I also have to admit it has two sides. So for example, when I was studying medicine and practicing yoga, I always wanted immediately to understand what's going on in my body. And sometimes I was very slow because I was reflecting too much. And my colleagues who just practiced, they made the experience and there was more a flow. And for me, for many years, also with Iyengar yoga, I have to admit, learning process was very slow because I was too much in my head. Things have changed actually when I really went to Pune, because the direct teaching there, and I was able to a little bit study with Iyengar, but mostly with Gita, and she was my main teacher, and I loved her, and she is full of fire and heart. And what she was teaching went deeper, and my thoughts somehow stopped. And for a few years, it was good that I could just practice and not think about too much. So there are really two sides. Right now, I'm quite relaxed because my medical knowledge somehow grounded me. And also my yoga practice somehow is a good foundation. And now I really like to play with it. But I also know a lot of people who don't have a good medical background, but they are wonderful yoga teachers and even therapists. So I think there's really a lot of sides how you can practice, teach people, and even heal people. And sometimes the classical medical knowledge or thinking too much can also stop you from evolving. So I don't know the perfect solution, but it's when I was younger, a lot of yoga teachers, yoga practitioners were getting things faster than me, to be honest, because I was thinking too much.
Hermann, that's really a great point that you just brought up. And it reminds me of a conversation I was having a couple months ago with a wonderful Iyengar yoga teacher from Australia, Peter Scott. And Peter said that he had also done some background studies in the body and in kinesiology and in anatomy from a more scientific standpoint, and that he found that that information was essentially getting in the way with his Iyengar yoga understanding. And I think one of the core things that he was mentioning was the fact that we really can't come to Iyengar yoga with that sort of mind frame or that sort of thinking, because there are things that we experience within our bodies from an Iyengar yoga perspective that aren't necessarily things that we'll find in a medical textbook. And there are ways of approaching the process of healing or the process of therapy from an Iyengar yoga perspective that isn't really in any book. And so this concept that holding on to information gets in the way of you having an actual experience sometimes, I think is really something that a lot of people go through who enter Iyengar yoga with previous knowledge, whether that's previous yoga knowledge or even whether that's previous medical knowledge because of being an actual medical practitioner. I find it interesting that you're reflecting on this point, that that knowledge that you had before, it actually essentially puts up a block in your brain or in your body or in your experience from actually going as deeply as you can with the practice.
Yeah, so this happened, and what I experience now more that I can play with both, you know, sometimes really to, let's say, practice Iyengar yoga and only feel my energy, whatever this is. Is there a flow? Is there not a flow? And on the other side, and also sometimes I want to explain things medically, but not everything. I think some basic knowledge always is good about the muscles, the bones, the joints, they are there. And the same, the organs, where are the organs? What is the function of the organs? Also to try to feel the organs, to try to feel the reaction of the organs while we're doing asanas. So, but I think in the beginning, also as a yoga practitioner, I'm very like focused or strict and too serious, and the same with medicine. And now I think I'm a little bit more like playful, and this is what I'm enjoying a lot. I don't have to explain everything. Not everything has to be explained, but it's nice to explain things. So it's like it can be done, but it doesn't have to be done. And sometimes I'm just open to experience. So, and I think those two things have to be balanced. And when I'm teaching anatomy or physiology or whatever, I also want to show the people you have to get some basic knowledge, but then also forget it and play. And then you have to, it's like speaking two different languages. And sometimes you can play with those two different languages, the Iyengar yoga language and the language of medicine. Yeah, this is what I like.
Hermann, now we've spoken about your medical history, and what we're really here to talk about today is how you've brought that into your teaching of Iyengar yoga. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you came to specifically be practicing Iyengar yoga today?
As I was explaining, when I started studying medicine, I really was shocked. I was in a depression, whatever. And at that time, I was doing martial arts like Aikido, and studying medicine and doing Aikido was too much for me, because when you have to kind of fight, you really have to be concentrated, and it was too stressful. And then I started Iyengar yoga, and then I really could adjust my practice to my medical studies. So this was a very good, nice experience. And then I got the idea I want to become a yoga teacher. It was too early and too fast. Normally we say the people first, you have to practice for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I think in the first year I wanted to become a yoga teacher again. It was not good for my practice, but anyway. And then when I moved to Berlin, I was looking for teacher trainings, but there were no teacher trainings in Berlin, even not in Germany. There was one in London, one in Amsterdam, and one in San Francisco. So 1991, I went to San Francisco for 6 months, and I started a teacher training there with Janet McLeod. She was my main teacher. And actually there I met my now best friend and colleague, Claudia Böhm. And she also did the teacher training there, but she really stayed there longer and finished it. After 6 months, I went back and continued, but I had some basic. And then when she came back, she supported me a lot. And actually, we also opened a yoga studio then in the early 90s. In 1996, we both went back to San Francisco and got certified there. And at that time, like the German Iyengar yoga scene was very small. We had teachers, good teachers, and that supported us a lot. But still the community was small. And also the association was very, very small and growing. And 1996, I was very, very super lucky. I started finishing medicine. I got my certificate, and I was elected in the board of the Iyengar Yoga Association. And Guruji, because Iyengar wanted to become to Europe. And he said he wanted to see Berlin and the wall of Berlin, actually the rest of the wall of Berlin. And he wants to live in a private place. And all the teachers who already knew Guruji were afraid of him. I didn't know him. I was not afraid at that time. And I just moved into a new apartment. I said, okay, he can stay in my place. I will do everything that he feels comfortable. So the first time really I met Guruji personally was in my apartment in Berlin. And he was fantastic. He was caring. He always said, I have to eat more. I have to laugh more, and I have to be happy. So he really was caring a lot. And I was super, 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 super happy. And then I decided I really have to go to Pune. I must go to Pune. So 1997, Claudia and me, we both went to Pune. And then I was grounded again. Suddenly, I was not his host anymore. I just was one little student. And this is how he treated me. I was expecting something different, to be honest. I thought this goes on. But then I just had to practice and learn. And at that time, I really got closer to Gitaji. So Iyengar was, the energy for me was too intense, and his teaching was too fast, and Gitaji was slower. I could not everything understand what she was teaching, but I really could follow her, and she really also touched me. So then she became, for many years, she became my main teacher. And with Guruji, I interacted a little bit when I was like doing a research project in 2010. I did a project about neck and shoulders and how Iyengar yoga works there, and I wrote my PhD about this. I used this a little bit to communicate to Iyengar, but there were like minutes of communications, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maximum 15 minutes, and then he always taught me something, but you cannot compare it with lawyers or the students who really continually work with Iyengar. So I could get something, and actually more I wanted to face. And with Gita, it was different. With Gita, I really could ask her, talk to her. She knew me much better. And we were lucky that she also came to Berlin. She also actually stayed in my place like 8 years after Guruji came in 2004, and this was also super, super wonderful. So I was somehow blessed with those two visitors. and then, but the work for me always, first I got all this good feelings, and then I really had to work, and the work had to be done, and it's still not over. And my yoga practice was not so easy.
Those moments that you just mentioned of meeting the Iyengars, as I hear you talk about them, I see you smiling, and I see that they're bringing up something really positive for you. And I think that that's something that a lot of us, especially the newer generation of Iyengar yoga teachers, will never have. And that's something that a lot of us missed out on. And I think it's really special how you were able to not only work with both Guruji and Gitaji, but between them realize that the person or the teacher who you really connected with the deepest was Gita. And the reason I say this is because I think that from the outside looking in, as a younger teacher, the obvious thing would be, oh, well, if this person has the opportunity to study with Guruji or Gitaji, he'll just study with Guruji, because the thought is, this is Iyengar yoga, it's named after BKS Iyengar, why not study with BKS Iyengar? But I've heard many teachers who've had that opportunity say, yeah, you know, I studied with Guruji, but I really, 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 like, Gita was my teacher. And I've heard that from many senior teachers. And I wonder for you, Hermann, why do you think that is, that even while the two of them were still alive, so many people really connected deeply with their relationship, their student-teacher relationship with Gita?
I think she digested somehow what she has learned from Guruji and saw that not everybody can face it. And she put it into little pieces, and somehow she also made a system out of that. I think with Guruji, one day he did this, the other day he did that. And if you not really knew the whole thing, you thought it was super, super confusing. And with Gita, there was more structure that you can orient. It was, and this structure, I think for a lot of people, and also for me, helped me, knowing that the structure is only for the moment, and not for the moment, but it's so, and also her personality was different, maybe also because she was a woman. I can connect very good as to women teachers, and with Guruji, I was always afraid, maybe a little, I don't want to say too much afraid. I'm also grateful that I met him, and when he was in my apartment, he was fantastic, but it was a different situation. But him as a teacher, I don't know. I think even if I would, I also thought, you know, I'm I'm in the wrong generation, because like Lois or Patricia Walden, they, you know, they had been much more opportunities also to practice with Iyengar. But even if I would have been their generation, I'm sure I couldn't face the situation, and therefore I'm grateful to Gita. I'm grateful also to Lois. You know, she also is like kind of that, she got the knowledge very direct, but she is kind of digesting it and putting it into different pieces, so we can more easier work with it. So for me, like Lois Steinberg and also Annette Herrenleben, she has been teaching in the Iyengar Institute in Berlin for many years. And before she studied with the Iyengars for 10 years, she was an assistant. From her, Claudia and I, we learned a lot and built up our therapy class. And this is what I said. I have some teachers where really, like with Gitaji, especially the knowledge came somehow into me without, there was a reflection, all those things, and I was writing down her sequences, but it was a really direct learning. And then the second and third generation, it's more reflective, and then somehow maybe I could understand it better. But like with Gitaji and also with Guruji, or the teachers that have studied with Guruji, like Lois, they have something, you cannot explain it. And especially with Lois, I'm sometimes surprised, because she really has a very good, like, medical knowledge. I'm sometimes think, oh my God, she knows more than me. Really, and sometimes things comes out of her, and I know it's not through analyzing. It's something that she learned in the medical class, working with Guruji, with Gitaji, with the patients, and those two things I'm really also super like fascinated, and I always think, wow, how is this happening? Yeah, but yeah, Gitaji is my big love.
Well, Hermann, I know that she not only was a main teacher of yours, but I also know that she wrote a foreword to your book. And we haven't spoken about that yet. For those of you who don't know, Hermann is the author of the Yoga Asana Anatomy book, and you can purchase it on loissteinberg.com and go and check out Lois's books and audios, and you will see Hermann's book, Yoga Asana Anatomy, there. And Hermann, can you just hold up your book so that we can see it again? There you go. Wow.
German book. The English looks more or less the same.
Hermann, that's a very, very, very big book. And I have a copy in Champaign-Urbana. I recently moved. I now live in Boston, Massachusetts. And I had to drag yoga props. I don't know if you've ever done this, but Lois has all of these blankets and all of these belts and the chumbles and everything. And every time I go to Lois, I pack up my suitcase full of everything. So I have to have her FedEx me my book. But I'm so happy to see it in English, because for a number of years, Lois had a copy of it in German. And I'd see her going through the book as if she could read German, but I think she was more or less looking at the images and looking at the layout. And it's such a wonderful book, Hermann. Can you tell us a bit about your journey towards deciding to write the book in the first place?
Yeah, in the late 90s, I started to teach anatomy and also physiology at the growing Iyengar yoga teacher trainings. So as I said, so in the 90s, Iyengar was not very popular. In the beginning, we only had one teacher training for the whole country. It really was amazing. And there I started to teach it. And I always wanted to give the people something beside normal books. So I started to make handouts. And after years of teaching anatomy, I found handouts are not so great. Maybe I should make a script or something. And then out of the script, the book evolved. And for me, I think it's really difficult to explain them or to teach anatomy to Iyengar yoga teachers, that on the one side, it's not boring and very casual, or on the other side, it's not too complicated. It really has to be practical. And since I also had difficulty to learn anatomy, I know that how frustrating it can be. So what I use, and therefore the book is so big, a lot of drawings. So the book is full of like drawings here. I don't know whether you see this. And there are a lot of drawings either of the anatomy or the asanas. And I want to have pictures that it's easier to learn with pictures than only with words. And that as I said, it's like learning a different language. And I find it very helpful to use those pictures to learn this very dry thing. And yeah, as I said, out of the things, the book evolved, and I was very happy when I finally wrote it in Germany. I think it was 2016, and it took 3 years to convert it into English. And I was happy, and I'm grateful that Lois Steinberg read it, and we changed it a lot. Gita was able to read it, and she, oh my God, wrote this beautiful foreword. And also David Carpenter, he was amazing. He was rewriting the whole thing in a very nice language, and he was hitting me, because then I had to really study again and again, because he is so specific. And then after the English book, I had to change the German book, because the English now was so much better. So yeah, this is the story of the book. And right now I'm working on the next book, which is called Yoga Asana Physiology. So, I don't know, maybe next year, maybe in 2 years, it will be finished. I'm working it. It's a lot of fun. It's, but let's see.
Well, Hermann, I know that I've heard Lois for years speak about when Hermann finishes his book, and I know that that's been a little bit of a fire behind you, and how great it must have been to have Lois always talking about the book, even before it was finished, and always planting seeds of, well, when Hermann finishes his book. and now your book is finished, and your book is so extraordinary. And this new book, Yoga Asana Physiology, is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Talk to us a bit, Hermann, about what differentiates the Yoga Asana Physiology versus the Yoga Asana Anatomy book.
So the anatomy book is mainly about the bones. Which bones do we have? The joints, so elbow joint, shoulder blade, etc. So the different kind of joints, and then the ligaments and muscles, so that we know how we can move our body. There are also some pathologies, very simple, explained, some guidance for yoga practice, always referring actually to Loy's books and the therapeutic books. So it's about the bones, joints, and muscles, the yoga asana anatomy. And the yoga asana physiology will be about the organs, also about different systems, like also the nervous system, immune system, and hormone system. And yeah, it's more difficult because like it's easy if you stretch your arms, the triceps is active, the biceps get stretched. It's like easy, but it's helpful that you know what your triceps is doing, your biceps or your trapezius muscle, also in which directions you can move your spine, because all those things are basics to move our body. And even if you want to work with our organs, still our like skeletal system has to follow. And if it doesn't work, becomes very difficult. So therefore, also decided to specify in orthopedic medicine first. And now after years, I got also in yoga therapy more and more interested in treating not only illnesses like knee problem, hip problem, back problem, but also different kind of ailments. It took many, many years, like Lois was supporting me also to try to do this. I was a bit scared, but it took years. But now I'm really more into those holistic thing, because for the organs, you really need everything. And yeah, I'm excited.
Hermann, how important is it, you think, for Iyengar yoga teachers to have this understanding of the human body?
I think there should be some understanding for sure. And this is, I think, in every country, if you do an assessment, you also have to write something about anatomy. In Germany, the level was a little bit too high for some years. This was my fault. I think people learned a lot, but it's really difficult to balance this. But I think some foundation you need, and it's very easier. And this is what I said also, if people talk to you about, or have arthritis in my hip, that you at least understand what is arthritis. Yeah, people come with some medical either background or knowledge from their doctors, that you somehow can either understand it or know how to check it and read it. So I think some basic knowledge is good. And in Iyengar yoga, really a lot of things can be explained medically, much more than in other yoga directions, because we have techniques. As said, not everything has to be explained, not at all, but some basic things can easily be explained. And then it's nice if you also have the medical explanation, medical background, and the people trust you more for some things. So I think it's there should be some base. And this is actually also what Gita was writing in her book, that she was like encouraging the people for the yoga journey to study this.
For you, Hermann, as a doctor coming into Iyengar yoga, what about Iyengar yoga feels familiar to you from a medical perspective? What about this system and this language and this way of being with the body makes so much sense to you from a medical perspective?
I think first of all, Iyengar Guruji uses a lot of medical terms. So in the class, you say, move your trapezius down. Not in other yoga directions, I think you use it. Lift your quadriceps up. Yeah, sometimes we really use a lot of medical terms to give directions. Move your sacrum down, your coccyx in, and then you have to know where it is. So, therefore, since our language is medically orientated, and I think it's good to have the medical background. And another thing is sometimes we are medical correct or anatomically correct in our words when we teach Iyengar yoga. And sometimes I think it's also important, sometimes we use pictures. For example, hit your bone into your body, or make your, even if you say make your thoracic spine concave. It's a feeling, but still, if you would make an X-ray, it's not concave. I think somehow it's also interesting that you create an anatomical feeling. It's just a picture, and it doesn't have to be anatomically correct. And I think, especially for a person like me who's explaining these things, that I say, play with the anatomy also, but know what can be done and what cannot be done. So sometimes you use anatomically words to create something in the body which is not happening really, but a feeling is created. And sometimes it's also good if you lift your quadriceps up, the quadriceps is lifting up, or make your quadriceps tight, there's a contraction of the quadriceps. And I think this is like with our instructions. The other thing is with the yoga therapy, there are a lot of studies in Iyengar yoga, because we have kind of sequences for example, chronic neck pain or for back pain. And therefore, Lois made a very good survey about low back. I did one about neck, because we have a series of asanas. For sure, we have to adjust to all the peoples, but it can be done again and again. And there will be not always the same result, but there will be a kind of same result. And with other yoga directions, you cannot do those studies. And I think those two things are very fascinating for me. And yeah.
This therapeutic approach that we have in Iyengar yoga, Hermann, a lot of Iyengar yoga teachers either say that they haven't been able to study therapy specifically because their teacher doesn't focus on it, or that, you know, even I remember I went with Lois to another country once and they said, you know, no one here really does Iyengar yoga therapy. And we have to be senior teachers in order to even begin to think about Iyengar yoga therapy. And you and I know that Lois's teachings are very different, because even the mentees that she has and the people who haven't yet been certified, she's already teaching us how to assist, which props are which props, what are the names of the props, how to take them, how to hold them, how to turn them, how the sticky mat should go, how the blanket should go. And so we're getting this deep training in Iyengar yoga therapeutics really from the very beginning of our studying, especially with Lois. So my question for you, Hermann, is what do you envision for our Iyengar yoga community insofar as yoga therapy is concerned? So in other words, what do you see, or where do you see Iyengar yoga therapy going within our Iyengar yoga community, and how can we help it get to that goal?
It's a difficult question. I think there, if I look a little bit at the past, as you said, yoga therapy only were for very senior teachers. So a lot of junior teachers were afraid to touch it, and when they were seniors, they just missed the train. And you know, and I also have seen you that you studied yoga therapy when you were young, and I really could see how fast you were learning, because when you're young, you learn faster, and also how to touch the people and all those things. And I think that with Lois, she always encouraged young people, but also in the whole Iyengar community, especially with Avijata, also a little bit with Gita, they saw if they stop people doing yoga therapy as young, or let's put it the other way around. So I think now people are encouraged more to also start dealing problems when they are younger, that in a basic teacher training or mentorship, which is called level 1 now, you really have to know how to help people with low back, with knee, with shoulder problems. Now the Iyengars or Abhijata, in my understanding, also expect that the people start to handle those basic things, and I think the rest is also evolving. You know, first, oh my God, somebody has a back problem. Then you have seen a few people, you know how to touch, you know which props, you're used to it, and then you can have a back and a neck problem, and then you can have a back and neck and maybe some whatever. And I think it's a process. And for me, I would say though, I'm really a learner that is not very fast. I'm a slow learner, even if I was young at your age. Learning really always took time, but it took time, and finally something good came out of it. So it's good also to know what you know. It's also good to know what you don't know. That means some people, it's also dangerous if you think, oh my God, I know everything, and there's a cancer person, I will heal him. You know, it's not good. You have to grow into this subject, and some people slower, some people faster, but I think we have to, as yoga teachers, we have to support and also share the knowledge. And what we have learned from Lois, that you're really supporting the young generation. And I hope also in the Iyengar Yoga Institute of Berlin now we have people who do knee classes, low back classes, hip classes, and we are just in the background. We are not always there, but we go through. If they have problems, they can ask them. And now I'm really surprised after a few years how they also gain somehow their own knowledge. It's also not that we show something and somebody's reproducing something new, something also is happening. And I think we have to support the young generation more in an early, not to wait too long, otherwise it gets lost and we will die before.
Hermann, that really resonates with me, and that really hits home a lot, because it has been a great fortune to be able to study with Lois and to be able to be invited with Lois into spaces where I know if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been able to be there. And people have even said it to me over the years that, you know, Mychal, if this were my class, you wouldn't be able to enter because you're not at a high enough level, or you're not at intermediate junior 3, and this is only for intermediate junior 3, and you know, this would never be possible. And I'm so grateful, because I've seen the work that Lois has done with me, but I've also seen the work that Lois has done with all of us in order for us to have this knowledge, and in order for us to have it well, and to be able to feel empowered to use the knowledge that we have within ourselves in Iyengar yoga to do this work within the world. Because it's one thing to have the knowledge, and it's another thing to feel confident that you can actually go out and do something with that knowledge. And Lois has even mentioned times when, you know, she has been put in a situation where she didn't really know what to do for that specific person or for that specific case. But because Iyengar yoga, this knowledge that we have is just so broad and so all-encompassing, that she was able to pull from what she already knew about Iyengar yoga, but also what she already knew about the human body, in order to create something that would specifically be helpful for that person. And it worked. And so I'm really grateful to hear you say that there's this legacy of knowledge, this legacy of wisdom, this legacy of living in the body and knowing how to heal the body when it's broken, that we have in Iyengar yoga, that we should be trying to pass on to newer generations of teachers. Because I think that that's one of our hallmarks in Iyengar yoga, that we know what to do for the body when it breaks. And even if we don't know how to heal a situation, we at least know how to create space for whoever, whether they are a person who has knee pain, neck or shoulder pain, lower back pain, or whether they have something more serious going on within them, that we as Iyengar yoga should know how to create space for that person to be able to still experience the light of yoga. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's a wonderful thing that we do in general, but I think it's also a wonderful thing to hear you say that that's something that you're bringing into your work in Berlin as well.
Yeah.
Hermann, I just wanted to know before we leave for today, is there any place where you're teaching or any workshops that you're teaching where you're actively bringing this work that you've already written about to life? So is there a yoga asana anatomy course with Dr. Hermann Traitteur that we can plug into or that we can log into?
So most of my courses actually are in German. So this is, so I do for different teacher trainings in Germany now online courses for about the anatomy and physiology and even the medicine. For the Iyengar Yoga Institute of Dallas, I do a series of workshops. I did yoga asana anatomy, 2 series. And I will be doing now a new series, which is called Yoga Asana Physiology. So right now I'm not only working with Ray just, but English is much more difficult for me. I'm grateful that he got me the opportunity, and it's good to grow into this thing. And but still, I have a lot of work also in Germany.
So that means in order for us to study with you deeply, we should all learn how to speak German.
No.
Well, listen, I was studying German for a little while earlier this year, and I was really hopeful that I'd be able to come on today and say something to you, whether it was Guten Abend or Danke schön, but that's about all I know.
But it sounded very good.
Oh. Well, listen, Hermann, I'm so happy to have had this opportunity today to talk with you about your work, because like I said, I've heard about you for a long time and I've known you for a long time, and I'm so happy that your book has been published. And for those of you, once again, who want to plug into Hermann's book or purchase Hermann's book, the name of the book is Yoga Asana Anatomy Book, and it has a foreword by our very own Gita S. Iyengar. And to buy a copy, you can visit loissteinberg.com and check out the books and audios over there on her page. And Hermann, hold it up just one more time for us to see what it looks like. It's a formidable book, and it's a beautiful book, and it has wonderful illustrations. And Hermann, if you haven't met Hermann in person, Hermann is a very tall person, and he's written a very tall book. So Hermann, once again, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being with me today on the show. And I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you, Michael. And I'm super grateful too. I'm very happy. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And to those of our listeners and viewers out there, if this is your 100th time joining us here on the Mychal Bryan podcast, or if this is time number 1, I just want to say thank you so much for continuing to support this work. As always, please make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, as well as share this podcast with your other yoga, mindfulness, and spirituality loving friends, so that more and more people can hear about the amazing work that's being done in the world by amazing teachers like Dr. Hermann Traitteur. I said it right?
Yeah, you did it right.
Until next time, everyone, have a good one. I'm your host, Mychal A. Bryan, wishing you love and peace and hope. Until we meet again, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Hermann.
Yeah.
This was so good. Thank you so much. How are you feeling?
Heat, a lot of heat in my body. It's not winter here, but it's autumn. Normally it's really cold outside now I created some heat. But it was nice.